And to get us recording and we can get going. There we go. Thank you, Miranda. Happy Friday. Hope everybody's staying dry. It's a dreary, wet day out there. It looks like it's going to be a wet weekend. Hopefully you get to stay in and just relax this weekend. I have a couple of general updates before I jump over to the Q&A, like always. But if you have questions, please feel free to start typing them into the Q&A. Find that Q&A icon and get those questions queued up for me, and we'll start answering them in just a minute. So I had originally indicated that I would be sending out the weekly communication today, but I am going to wait until Monday to send that out. We're going to be rolling out the new Evergreen issue submission form. And so I want to send that weekly communication out on Monday and provide that link to you guys with the how to navigate to that new submission form and a little bit of information about it. But really excited so that you guys don't need to be remembering what email address to send what question to or what issue to. You'll be able to just go to this one single form, type in your question and put what category it belongs to, and then it will route to the right team here in ODES and we'll be able to respond to you. So it should make things a little bit more efficient for you and hopefully for us as well, and so that we can be a little bit more effective in responding to your questions. So that's super exciting news. Again, expecting that to roll out on Monday, but more to come when we send out the weekly communication. But hopefully you did see the communication from last week that went out this past Monday that did have the details, the full list of issues that were resolved in the May 31st deploy, the Friday, May 31st deploy. The items that were relevant for this group were the provider authorization role. Apparently there was an issue where you couldn't view all of the person records for persons that were assigned to your organization. So that was resolved. And then, as you know, we turned back on some of those notifications that we had turned off because of the initial issues that we were having with those. So those have been turned on. Those were actually turned on before the 31st, on the 29th and the 30th. And I did cover those as well last week, but the full list was also in the communication that went out this past Monday. Also, just a reminder, I'm sure you already know because we talked about it last week, and it was also in the weekly communication, but I just want to make sure everybody is fully aware. This is the last Friday meeting for this series. We did create a new meeting series. It will now be held on Tuesday mornings at 8 a.m. and it will be a joint meeting open to this group as well as our agency support people. It's open to everybody who's an Evergreen user. So if you have not already registered for that and you would like to continue to come and ask questions and get updates and answers to questions on these calls, definitely make sure that you get registered. And I pop the registration link into the chat right now. So if you don't have that, you can grab it right there. But again, it will be very similar to this meeting. All topics will be covered though. So it will be some case management, care coordination, and provider questions, and even possibly some state staff user questions. So I will be responding to all questions on that call for all Evergreen users. But again, it will be on Tuesdays at 8 a.m. and it will happen every other week. So the first meeting in that series will be on June 18th, and that will be the Tuesday following our next production deploy. So I'll be able to give you an update on what deployed to production, and then answer any questions that you might have, or hear any issues that you might have. And the other item that, oh, actually, I think I already covered the rollout of the new issue submission form. So I think that was everything in my general updates for today. So we'll go ahead and pop over to the questions and answers. I do have a question. So the question says, we're continuing to have clients that cannot see an evergreen, that you cannot see an evergreen. I actually have one that I used to be able to see, but now cannot see at all. Like he does not exist for us. Interesting. Have you, Alexa, if you haven't already, please email evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov and let us know what person ID or person's name, you won't have the ID because you can't see them, but what the person's name is and what their main care number is. And then we can take a look and try to figure out why that person may not be. It's likely that that person does not have a location assignment to any location in your organization, and we'll have to see why that is. If you're actively serving that person, we'll want to make sure that we get that resolved for you. And the next question is regarding reportable events. Is there any way to correct something on a completed report or follow-up report, such as like an issue with a typo or a date issue? Yes. So you Shirley and any reportable event users, once you've submitted your reportable event, after 24 hours, you cannot make any changes to that reportable event. It locks down and you cannot make any changes to that reportable event. But if you find that you need to make a change to that, you can submit a request to have that modified. There is a form that should be filled out when you make a request for any type of edit or deletion. We are actually working to revise that form. It currently just references EIS. So we're working to get that updated. And once we get that updated, we'll share out that new form. But for right now, you can email evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov and you can request a modification to the reportable event, or there are some legitimate scenarios where one might need to be deleted, like you accidentally applied it to the wrong person record or something like that. So when you do that, though, please CC your supervisor so that and have your supervisor acknowledge their approval of that as well, because it would need to be approved by a supervisor in addition to the requester. So Bonnie is asking if that form is only for reportable events. No, it's for any edits that need to be made. So it can be relevant to reportable events or progress notes. We won't, in Evergreen, we won't need to delete any like forms or plans because we have the ability to close those or, do clerical edits to those. So there shouldn't be any need to ever delete any like PCPs or service implementation plans or things like that. But for like a progress note or a reportable event, there may be a need to delete one of those if it was applied to the wrong person's record, or like a true duplicate, and we don't want it to be in there. But that form can be used for any edit that's needed to be requested. So this question is, I recently got emailed that a person is ready to have a service implementation plan done for them, but did not receive a service implementation plan invite in the notifications. Shouldn't we be receiving those notifications now? Yes, Drew, you should be receiving those notifications. It's possible that your case manager didn't invite you. So in order to receive the notification, the assigned case manager needs to physically put your location into the waiver service in the person-centered plan. So maybe they just emailed you and said, hey, I need you to do this, but they didn't actually put your name in there. But I would like to look into that further. So if you could also email evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov and tell us what person, if you have the person ID, that would be great. What person you were requested to do the service implementation plan for. We can take a look at it and see if that's the case or if the notification didn't trigger for some reason. So that's oh, great. Here we go. So Case manager completed the service implementation plan for consumer in Evergreen. However, I'm not able to open it or access the service implementation plan completed by the case manager in order for me to complete the SIP for the customer we serve. The case manager stated they did invite me, and I still was not able to see the service implementation plan. So if you're a brand new provider, if you're not actively serving the person, you will not be able to see the service implementation plan. You will have to fill a paper service implementation plan form out and send that back to your case manager. So I don't know if that's the case here. If it is, then definitely work with your case manager. They're going to need to give you a copy of the PCP, and they're going to need to give you that paper service implementation plan form so that you can fill those out and get those back to them. If you're actively serving the person, like you've been their provider and you're still actively assigned to their record, I do know that there is a situation where sometimes providers are getting auto unassigned by the system too early. So like if it's an annual plan, I think sometimes um the system is auto unassigning people when it shouldn't. I've heard that reported a couple of times, but um so that might also be the case. So if you've been providing services to the person ongoing and you think you should be able to see the person's navigate to the person's record and see that PCP and that SIP, then maybe your assignment got inactivated. And so you might need to ask your community case manager about that as well to see if you're assigned to the person record. But if you are assigned, then you should be able to navigate to the person record. You should be able to go to the forms and plans icon. You want to use your little filter icon in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, which looks like an upside down pyramid, or we also refer to it as the hamburger because it's got a few lines. And then you're going to want to go to your custom person-centered plan list page. And then you want to click on the person-centered plan. And when you click on it, it's going to tell you that you do not have access to the PCP because it's going to go into the PCP tab. But you'll see a SIP tab on the just to the right of the PCP tab, and you can click on that, and then you should be able to see your SIP from there. So if you're still struggling with that, definitely reach out to the evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov email address, and we can certainly look into it further for you. But your case manager should be able to tell you whether you're assigned and provide you the paper forms if you need to do them on paper. I see that there were a couple of questions that were already answered. I don't see any other questions here in the Q&A, but please, if you have questions, I'll give a few more minutes because I know we just got started. I don't know, Nancy, if there's anything else that you wanted to share this morning. I didn't ask you. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I just don't have anything to
Right.
fill.
I don't. I mean, I know that SIPs are still a struggle for some people. So by all means, if they're struggling, they could send that email
Yeah,
to
yeah.
us, and we will try to
If
get them
things
in
that I didn't say don't help, definitely reach out and we'll try to give you some additional support around that.
for this group. That's all I can really think of.
And no problem. So we are not scheduled to have a deploy tonight. The next deploy will not be until next Friday night, and then we will have the next meeting in the new series on Tuesday, the 18th. Great. So is there a time frame for providers to have the ability to print service implementation plans from Evergreen? No, I'm not sure if I'm entirely following the question, but like if your service implementation plan form has been filled out and you want to be able to print that, that does not expire. That service implementation plan will be there for you. I guess what I would say is at the time of annual planning. So when it comes around time to do for the case manager to do the person's annual plan, the plan will clear out and they will have to re-add services and they will have to re-add re-invite you to do a new service implementation plan. So under the active plan, you won't see that version of the service implementation plan anymore, but under the inactive plans, you would still be able to go back and find that service implementation plan if you needed it for some reason. But yeah, you should be able to print them at any time. So Bonnie's asking about the form for making edits. Yeah, so for right now, Bonnie, we're just taking the requests via email until we get the form updated, and then we'll publish the new form. So there is no form right now. So if an edit needs to be made right now, to like a progress note or a reportable event, those can be just emailed to evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov and say, I need person ID, blah, blah, blahs, progress note from whatever date or reportable event ID, whatever that is, the date updated to whatever, and then we'll take care of it from the email for right now. But we will get that form revised, and we'll get that published for you guys, because it will be much better to have a form that you can fill out all the details that we need. So this one is indicating that you completed an Evergreen access form, then checked the box to see reportable events, and I can view records, but when I click on the reportable, it says that I do not have the access to view. Interesting. Please reach back out to evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov, Lisa, and let them know that you're able to get in and you can get to the person's records, but that you're seeing that error message saying that you don't have the ability to view the reportable events, but you should have had the reportable event provider access, and we'll take a look at it and make sure that you have the right access. Christy says, can you quickly provide the entire workflow for an approved authorization? Sometimes I reach out to the coordinator email and I get notified that it's stuck in some part of the process. I hope this makes sense. It's kind of loaded, Christy, because I think it depends on whether we're talking about like initial PAs, a change in waiver services, or potentially annual. I think the process might be slightly different for each of those scenarios. But in general, during the person-centered planning process, the assigned case manager or care coordinator and the person and their support team will meet, and the services will be added. The waiver services will be added to the person-centered plan. And then after the meeting occurs, the plan will be sent to, if this is again, an initial or an annual, and there's a planning team meeting associated with it, it will be sent to state review. So our resource coordination team will review the plan to ensure that it supports the waiver services and the units being requested in those waiver services. And then they'll approve that. And then it will go back to the community case manager, who will then invite waiver providers to submit their service implementation plans. And then once those service implementation plans have been reviewed and the person has reviewed them and approved them, then the assigned case manager or care coordinator will add the provider as the selected provider to the waiver service. And then they'll capture all the signatures on the plan, and then they'll set the plan to complete. And once they set the plan to complete, the system will auto-generate all of the prior authorizations, which will then notify the resource coordination team again that they need to review and authorize the PAs. So then they will do
Oh, no.
I don't know what happened.
I know. It looks like we just kind of lost her.
Yeah, hold on just a
She'll be
second.
back.
Yeah.
This is Emily. I think I could take over
Perfect.
talking for a minute, probably. I think Leslie was pretty much at the end of her explanation. It was talking about when a PCP reaches plan complete status in its workflow is when the resource coordination team, again, it has a notification. We also have a query to tell us again what the work is that's ready for us to review from those PAs. If it's an initial or an annual PCP, it, like Leslie said, auto generates a portion of the authorization, just the procedure code, the location, the amount, but it's pending review. It's not in place yet. But the change PCP, there's nothing auto generated because there could be multiple services in a person's plan, right? But only one of them is changing. So all that to say, just a little bit more work just requires the authorization to be created sort of fully manually, but we still receive the same kind of notification to let us know it's in plan complete status. So Christy, I think I'm trying to think of all the emails because I think I've seen some of the emails from you or your agency reaching out. Sometimes when a waiver provider is asking about the status, it's not so much that something is stuck, I guess I'd say, or that there's an issue. It's just that it's not at a point yet where again, it's not at a point where the state can take action because it's not yet in plan complete status. So maybe I think, racking my brain, what I often do is, again, when there's an inquiry, we'll CC a case manager and a waiver provider into the same email, and again, just alert the case manager that it is not yet in plan complete status. Ask if there's any assistance needed, because in some limited cases, it's not been possible for a case manager to move a plan to complete status. And so we want to make sure that if that is the case, we will take action anyway, because you can see in the plan it's signed, SIPs are approved, all that, but it's just not able to make that last transition to plan complete status to give us the notification that it's ready for authorization review. So all that to say, that's, I think, best explanation as to what you may have experienced sometimes when reaching out, having expected authorizations already. Not that they're stuck, just that they're perhaps not in a place yet where the state could act on them. Or again, that there's action we still need to take because of the high volume.
Hi, all. Leslie had some technical difficulties, so I don't know if she's gonna make it back. So
I can address Bonnie. She
thank you,
can
Nancy.
provide a duplicate screen option when copying from old SIPs, similar to what we have shown case managers. I'm sure they probably could. I mean, I think if you can, whatever you can see on the screen, you can duplicate. They just need to be trained on how to do that. Some people probably already know how to kind of duplicate a screen to copy and paste, but as long as you can pull up the old SIP on one screen and then open up the new one, you should be able to copy and paste by duplicating screen. If we get to the end of the questions and you want to, I could probably demonstrate that possibly.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time looking at. I can't see the Q&A. So if you don't mind taking over the Q&A and
Sure.
just kind of reading them out loud,
Yeah,
and then
I'm gonna leave that one there, and then if we have time, I'll go back and try and demonstrate how to
awesome.
duplicate the
Thank
screen.
you.
Paul is asking, where does a Trezor/CRT approval fit into the PCP and the auth process?
I can take that.
Sure.
So right, Paula. So I'm sure you know, but just real quick for others who may not, there's historically been different authorization time periods for agency home support authorizations. So those providers that submit information about the staffing needs for hours of direct support for everyone that lives in a group home, because of course there's multiple case managers, multiple residents that all have different PCP date ranges and whatnot. So all that to say, so there's, again, historically 6-month authorization time periods. And I guess the quickest way maybe that I could try to summarize, I think you were asking, sort of how does it all fit in maybe to what we were just describing. I guess what I would say is certainly when there's a request for a person to start receiving the agency group home service, of course, the reviewer or the staff who's working in a Trezzo from ODES that's looking to see what's being requested for hours of direct support for this person in the context of not just them, but everyone else in their home, is of course looking to see that there is a plan in place reflecting that change, that there's a signed plan, right, that it's been approved. But I guess I would say that they're sort of two different paths, but they interact. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we've had some confusion lately from case managers who may not have been as cued in before in EIS, just because Evergreen has sort of presented things a little bit differently. So it's sort of been different education points. So some case managers have said, at the time of the annual plan and when they're seeing authorizations that are generated for all services, they're saying, well, wait a minute, what about this agency group home authorization? It's either going a little bit longer or something like that. And we've been explaining again that they're different time periods, because again, every person living in that home likely has a different PCP end date. A lot of folks know that with the transition to Evergreen, there was temporarily some changes. We worked hard and fast to make the switch back to having, again, all residents in the same group home have the same authorization end dates, if you will, so that when there's a submission for the new determination about the rate, which of course is influenced by the amount of staffing. So again, it usually is not the case that at the time of the annual planning, there is going to be a new authorization issued for agency home support. It could happen, but it's usually not the case. But of course, anytime that there's action being taken in a Trezzo, we're looking to see that there is a current plan and that there's consent if there is any change happening.
Thanks,
Thank you, Emily.
I found the Q&A, Nancy, so I can take over if you don't
Okay,
want me.
perfect. If you want, fine.
The next question, is there a quick way to find report ID on the reportable event? The Forms pan menu area has a form ID listed, but not the reporter ID. And if you have multiple reports for that person the same day, you have to open each report, look at the overview, and look for the report ID number. The Forms menu area doesn't have the event date, just creation date. So that isn't helpful. Yeah, we just have so in the search on the list page, you can put the form ID, but I know what you're saying. The report ID is inside. Yeah, we can take that back, and right now we don't have that capability, but it's something that we could do as an enhancement later on down the road. Teresa writes, is there going to be a return of safety device plans and increased levels of support for shared living letters being sent out to the guardians? Service providers right now are unable to see if these have been approved in the person's plan without having to go through the case manager. I don't, Nancy.
Lisa, I can speak to increased level of support. I couldn't speak to safety device plans, unfortunately, but I'm not as familiar with that process. But so I think for increased level of support, where I'm a little confused is that there's a unique modifier to the procedure code. So I would hope that a provider could see by the fact that an authorization has been issued for like shared living, one member served, increased level of support, instead of seeing S5140, which is the sort of standard shared living, there'd be the TG modifier. So that would be, again, in the issued authorization, the way to know that increased level of support had been approved. But please ask follow-up if I'm missing the question, if I'm misunderstanding.
Thank you,
As far
Emily.
as safety device plans, I'm not real familiar with safety device plans either. As far as I know, that's a crisis team kind of oversight, and I don't know if there's someone here from crisis who can speak to any kind of a letter going out
Yeah, I don't think there is anybody on the call, but what we can do is we can ask
Take it
that
back.
question and take that back and maybe provide that at our next meeting. Yeah. Um, there's a question from Heather. It says, is there an idea of when the hours will populate on the PA report? I believe that's in creation right now. So it takes a little bit to create it and then actually put it in development and then put it out to production. So I believe we are working on that. We have multiple clients with expired authorizations. As a service provider agency, what steps, if any, should we be taking to get this resolved? Emily?
Yeah, so until there is, an email to you explaining how to use our new Evergreen ticketing system. And so at the point that happens, please follow those steps. As Leslie kind of quickly explained, it'll be a way for folks to just put an issue, submit it, and not have to think about, gee, is this something which, goes to evergreen.dhs or does it go to resource coordinator odes at maine.gov? But for waiver providers with questions related to authorizations, the resource coordinator odes at maine.gov email is the best place to send them. And, I do sincerely apologize. I know that there are some folks, again, it's an imperfect system. There's a really high volume of emails. It's been difficult to make sure that all are responded to and prioritize, different levels of importance, if you will. Not that every person is an importance, but what I'm trying to say is in terms of if there's an email about one person and one authorization missing with a total cost perhaps of $500 a year, that looks just like one other email with a long list of issues. So all that to say, resource coordinator odes at maine.gov is the place that a waiver provider can reach out to. And as Christy, I think, was explaining, it may not always be that we can respond saying, done, here's the authorization, depending on what we see in Evergreen in relation to, is there a PCP that's complete and signed? But we're doing our very best to be responsive and to give that level of individual detail, including case managers, if you've not already been in touch, so that you know what the current status is of the plan.
Thanks, Emily. And the next question is probably you as well. So it's Teresa Hess asks, the problem we have is that we aren't getting authorizations for such a long time, so we don't know until we get the authorizations. Thankfully, when the authorizations come in, they are approved. However, the not knowing could affect the ability of the agency to continue to provide the staff person to assist the home provider without knowing if it has been approved, because you have to reapply each year. Should we be assuming they are going to be approved every year as long as the application is submitted?
I think, Teresa, when you said the extra staff person, that makes me think you're talking about increased level of support specifically, because I think you asked that other question, if I remember right. So I think my best recommendation would be that, again, our timeframes lately have not have not been what we'd like them to be. Let's be honest, we all know that. But all that to say, I think what I would just share about that is I can't make an assurance, unfortunately, like you said, to assume it will be approved. But what you can do, like I just mentioned, is feel free to, make sure you're in direct contact with the case manager. I mean, sometimes it's already happening, sometimes not, though, when we look closer to a situation. And again, to reach out to, as a waiver provider, like I just said, resource coordinator odes at maine.gov. Sometimes things can be, submitted earlier. But of course, as I mentioned, I don't mean to point fingers. It's not a situation where there's anything productive coming from blame. Sometimes, of course, things are submitted in a timely manner. It's just a very high backlog we are prioritizing in terms of PCP effective dates and doing our very best. It's just been as everyone knows, a learning curve with Evergreen, which has caused there to be more requests than typical, because there's been people that have submitted and then submitted again with a correction and then perhaps submitted again, whereas in the past it might have just been, one submission for the whole issue, for the whole service need. So all that to say, again, I'm sorry, I can't give an assurance that because something has always been approved that it will always be approved. I know that will be ideal, but I just kind of can't make that kind of broad statement. But all that to say, I see where you're coming from, and feel free to reach out if it sounds like this has already happened, but in the future, as the PCP effective date is approaching, if you're not sure again about the status, and we'll do everything we can to put a rush on things that are urgent, which is why we encourage folks to reach out.
Fantastic. Thank you, Emily. I
You
think
bet.
that's, oh, there's Leslie. Hi.
I'm sorry, you guys. I don't know. I think literally my computer just force restarted and then it was installing updates and I couldn't get back on. Thank you guys so much for taking over. I will just say, Alexa did ask, and I saw that you responded, Lisa, you typed the response, but I'll just remind everybody, we're hoping to launch that new issue submission form, that new ticketing system on Monday of next week. So keep your eyes out for that. I will be sending the weekly emailed communication on Monday, and it should include the link to that with a little bit of additional information about that, and any other common questions and things that we want to share with you guys next week. So yeah, I think that's it. I don't see any other questions either in the Q&A. Again, apologies for just totally going dark on you there. Thank you, Emily and Nancy and Lisa, for picking up while my computer tried to figure out how to get me back online. I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your Friday, a wonderful weekend. I do see,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
While
Duplicate.
you were off there,
Hmm.
Bonnie had asked about showing a duplicate screen to providers, how they could do a SIP if they have to copy and paste one SIP to another. We've shown case managers how to do duplicate screens when they copy from one PCP to another PCP. And I
Yeah.
said there was a little bit of time we might be able to show that using our Terry
Yeah. Do you want to do?
person. I don't mind. I just need a second to get, as long as I can share. Just
Yeah.
need a second to get into that person,
Okay.
and then I'll share my screen. And everyone see this now?
Yeah.
Okay. I need to move stuff around because I always have stuff covering most of my screen. Let's just move that out of the way. All right, go to the forms and plans. Got a one that's completed. These are all closed. I'm able to get into one here. Let's see. We have a SIP. This is really slow, and sometimes it'll load into a white screen. So, I mean, this is the other group would be able. Oh, I probably did. Yep.
We'll just click on
Usually
your
does work. Sorry, could do that. So I'm just gonna do this real quick, but I gotta move stuff around. I don't even know how to get rid of that thing at the top to be able to see my.
Yeah, we can see it, but I know it's always in your way when you're sharing your screen.
Hold on, let me see what. I feel like if I hit something, it's gonna. I can move it. Look at that. All right, so leave duplicate tab. So if people are watching, if you can see your entire tab up here, you just go into that tab and you right click. It will give you this long list of things you can do, and you hit duplicate tab, and it will open up another Evergreen tab with the same thing that you just had. So you can then open up, if this is the old one, you could open up this SIP.
Possibly.
Yeah, we'll try again. There's a significant load time in forms now for me, just to get them to open.
Hmm.
And I just want to let other people know, and probably in the other group on Monday should know this with case management, that sometimes this will return a white screen, but it's just load time. I
Yeah.
can move around a little bit, it
Yeah,
will come eventually. Um,
yeah, bottom one. I think you
Yep,
want the.
yep, yeah, I'm just gonna do this real quick. So if you get into this would be the one that you would be copying and pasting out of. There's not much in here. These are test documents. So, but what you would do is you take whatever in here that you want, and you would just use the,
Yeah, you probably can't copy any of that. Yeah, there you go.
but we'll copy this interesting. You would just copy it. You
Keyboard
go back
mash.
to your other one, which you probably already have open. Oh no, open quickly.
Nice.
And then you'd go to here. Well, let me just see.
That one right there.
Right here. So then you'd go in here and you could just paste. The interesting with this is just making sure you're copying from, I mean, with the SIP, it's not as much. With the PCP, it's different pages, but making sure the one you're pulling from is going on to the one you want to go on to, since you have two identical tabs that are kind of open at once. But that's how you would do it. It's creating the duplicate tab off of.
Mhm. And we
And then
could certainly put together like a little quick instruction
I
sheet.
think there are.
We could. Okay.
Bonnie had some, and I asked her to try to load it into the thing, and if she couldn't, send them to Miranda so she could
Okay.
add it to the.
Yeah, yeah, we'll
So
definitely share out those instructions of how to duplicate your tab and do the copy of the text and paste of the text so that you guys can have that as well. Thank you guys. Oh yeah, thanks, Bonnie. Send that my way and we'll get that added into the help center and shared out. All right. Well, so thank you, Nancy, for showing that. And again, thank you everybody for joining us on this rainy Friday, and have a fabulous weekend. And we hope to see you again on Tuesday, the 18th at 8 a.m. Bye-bye.